Here's 5 TV show remakes you may have missed or forgotten about. Flash Gordon. The character of Flash Gordon was created almost 100 years ago. He first appeared as the protagonist of his adventure comic strip back on June 7, 1934. Flash was created to compete with the very successful comic strip Buck Rogers. Although the creation of the character was more or less by accident. King Features tried to acquire the rights to John Carter of Mars by Edgar Rice Burroughs. When they couldn't come to an agreement on the rights, King essentially had one of their artists, Alex Raymond, create a new outer space-themed character. After a fair amount of retooling, Flash Gordon was born. Flash was a handsome polo player and a Yale University graduate. He's in a constant battle with Ming the Merciless, an evil alien from the planet Mongo that wants to destroy Earth. Flash goes on adventures with his companions, the lovely Dale Arden and the brilliant Dr. Hans Zarkov. The comic was very successful, and then in the 1930s there were 3 serial films created with Buster Crabbe playing the lead: Flash Gordon's Trip to Mars, and Flash Gordon Conquers the Universe. These proved incredibly popular and helped to further cement Flash Gordon as a sci-fi icon. Over the years, the character appeared in TV shows, radio dramas, animated shows, and a big-budget theatrical movie. Then in 2007, there was a live-action TV show that aired on the Sci-Fi Channel, Flash Gordon. The series was developed by Peter Hume and was made to introduce the character to a new audience. It was loosely based on the comic strip. Really, it was an amalgamation of various elements from other adaptations of the character. The show was about Stephen Flash Gordon, played by Eric Johnson. He's a 25-year-old guy who lives with his mom. When he was 13, his scientist dad vanished while doing a top-secret experiment. One day, Flash, along with his ex-girlfriend Dale Arden, meet his father's former assistant, Hans Zarkov. Zarkov's been following up on Flash's father's experiments, and he opens a portal to another planet, Mongo. They travel to Mongo, which is run by the evil dictator Ming, who controls the source water, the most precious commodity in the universe. During their time there, they run into Ming's sexy daughter, Princess Ara, and a new character created for the show, Balin the Bounty Hunter. Over the course of the series, they travel back and forth between Earth and Mongo, trying to stop whatever evils Ming is doing that week. The show premiered on August 10th, 2007. The series did not do well. Critics panned the show, with some calling it the worst thing they had ever reviewed and a disgrace to its name. Aside from the movie from 1980 and the video games, I really don't know much about the character. So I enjoyed the show for what it was, rather than what it wasn't. It got me interested in the character, and I've since gone back to watch some of the old serials. I personally didn't think it was all that bad. On a side note, I really wanted Flash's bomber jacket. The show was canceled and the last episode aired February 8th, 2008. It ran for 1 season with 21 episodes. The show was released on DVD a few times since then. The show is available for streaming on Fubo and Fossum. It's also available on YouTube. The Bionic Woman. Way back in 1973, there was an overwhelmingly popular TV series, The $6 Million Man, which was based on the 1972 novel Cyborg. In 1975, there was a 2-part episode, The $6 Million Man, that introduced the character of Jamie Summers, played by Lindsay Wagner. Summers was in a horrible accident, and much like the $6 Million Man, she's rebuilt with bionic parts, making her superhuman. Now with her new parts, she becomes a special operative for the government. Jamie died at the end of part 2, but audiences wanted more. The character was so popular that ABC had the writers find a way to bring her back. Since no one ever really dies in entertainment, they rewrote it that she wasn't dead, she just went into a coma, and they lied to Steve Austin. Now with everything set up, ABC launched the spin-off, The Bionic Woman, in 1976. The show went on for 3 seasons with 58 episodes. The first 2 seasons were on ABC, and then the final season was on NBC. Just something that's funny to me, both the $6 Million Man and the Bionic Woman both fought Bigfoot in their respective shows. Years later, there were 3 crossover movies: The Return of the $6 Million Man and the Bionic Woman, The Bionic Showdown, and Bionic Ever After. In 2007, NBC brought the series back. The Bionic Woman premiered September 26, 2007. It was about Jamie Summers, played by English actress Michelle Ryan. After almost dying in a car wreck, she's rescued by her boyfriend, who is in charge of some cutting-edge technology. He replaces her damaged parts with cybernetics, making her the Bionic Woman. Much like the original, Jamie now has to do missions for the Shadow Government. Katie Sackhoff from Battlestar Galactica was brought in to play Sarah Corvus, the original Bionic Woman. The awesome Miguel Ferrer played Jonas, Jamie's contact who assigns her to her missions. The series reboot was first mentioned all the way back in 2002. Originally, it was set to be developed for the USA Network, with Jennifer Aniston in the lead. That deal fell through and it went to NBC, where they decided to update the franchise for a new audience. The series wasn't a hit, but it wasn't failing. That is until the WGA writer's strike. Production of the series stopped mid-November, and numerous rumor mill websites were announcing the show was canceled. At the end of the strike, the show was set to have the rest of its first season episodes filmed and released in 2008. However, with the gap in views, NBC decided instead to cancel the show. So the 8th episode ended up being the last of the series, even though they had about another rumored 6 to go. Critics didn't like the show. They said it was too dark and not campy like the original. They also said Michelle Ryan wasn't aggressive enough for the role. The show was released on DVD and video on demand. It's not streaming anywhere that I could find. Some clips are on YouTube, but not the full series. The new Dragnet. Here's some TV lore for you. Dragnet started as a radio drama that aired on NBC. The first one aired June 3rd, 1949. It was a huge success that ran for 314 episodes. The majority of these episodes have been uploaded to various places over the internets. The show was an American crime drama created by Jack Webb. It was such a hit, they turned it into a live-action series. It was about two cops, Sergeant Joe Friday and Sergeant Ben Romero. Although sadly, the actor who played Romero died unexpectedly after filming episode 2. He was eventually replaced with Officer Frank Smith. As always, there's a much larger story here that I'm just condensing for the sake of brevity. The series ran for 8 seasons with 276 episodes, from 1951 to 1959. Jack Webb, who played Friday, brought the show back in 1967, where it aired until 1970. This time, it ran for 4 seasons with 98 episodes. In 1987, there was a Dragnet movie with Dan Aykroyd and Tom Hanks. Then in 1989, there was The New Dragnet. After the success of the revival of Jack Webb's other cop show, Adam 12, bringing back Dragnet seemed like a no-brainer. This was set to be a first-run syndicated show and was the first Dragnet series that came out after the death of creator Jack Webb in 1982. Although The New Dragnet was entirely new. New characters, new music, and new presentation. With all this new, they probably could have just made this a new show altogether. It was about Detective Vic Daniels and Detective Carl Molina. The series premiered October 24th, 1989. With all the updates, critics weren't happy with the show. They said it had none of the charm of the originals, and felt like a somewhat goofy by-the-numbers remake. Ratings fluctuated, but were never good enough to continue making more than the initial order. The show continued for 2 seasons with 52 episodes. The last one aired on September 9th, 1990. Since this was syndicated, it played for years after it ended. I don't see it streaming anywhere, but the original Dragnet with Jack Webb are on Tubi. The show is not on YouTube aside from some clips. Dragnet. Dragnet's such an enduring franchise, they brought it back again. This time with Al Bundy. The series was produced by Dick Wolf, who was in charge of the vast array of Law & Order shows. Unlike the new Dragnet, this Dragnet was a straight reboot of the original series. They had Joe Friday, played by Ed O'Neill, and Frank Smith, played by Ethan Embry. Dragnet premiered February 2nd, 2003. The show didn't go over as well as they hoped, so they made some drastic changes for Season 2. While Season 1 was like the original, where it focused on the cop duo, with Season 2, they went for the Law & Order style, which is more of an ensemble cop drama. For Season 2, they also changed the name from Dragnet to LA Dragnet. They got rid of Frank Smith and brought in a variety of younger cops who were added to the main cast. Audiences didn't like the changes, and it was canceled 5 episodes into Season 2 on November 1st, 2003. The network burned off a few episodes over the spring of 2004 and then aired the last 2 episodes in December of 2004. The show is available to stream on Peacock. It's also available on YouTube. V, one of my all-time favorite TV shows. Well, technically miniseries, but more on that, well, now. V was a 2-part miniseries about aliens or visitors that arrive on Earth and try to gain control by nefarious means. Yes, Exploring V is coming, so for the whole story, check that out when it drops. Anyway, the miniseries was such a hit, they made a miniseries sequel, V The Final Battle, which came out a year later. The shows were mega hits, spawning comic books and a V video game. The creator, Kenneth Johnson, planned on a 3rd miniseries, but the network, NBC, wanted to make it a weekly series. Problem was, they didn't want to put that much money into it. So the TV show had cut corners. Like how the visitors in both miniseries had voice modulation, but now in the regular series, they ditched that to save money, and so they sounded human, which went against the lore the series had already set out. The TV series was a big disappointment and was canceled on a cliffhanger. Johnson was trying to bring the series back to television as a late sequel to the original that would ignore the final battle and everything afterwards. Unfortunately, Warner Brothers decided to just do a reboot of the series instead. Discouraged by this, Johnson went off to write his concepts as a novel, V, The Second Generation. ABC, along with Warner Brothers, remade V with a newer spin to appeal to a different crowd. Only they went right into a TV series and skipped the miniseries. It was more of a reimagining of the franchise than just a straight remake. V premiered on ABC November 3rd, 2009. Johnson had no involvement in the reimagining. The show had a much more aggressive group of visitors, and instead of having the lead spokesperson be Diana, they had Morena Baccarin as Anna. Since it was an ongoing series and not a miniseries, the stories dragged on longer than they should have, and so the show wasn't as exciting as the original. Season 1 had lagging ratings, so for Season 2 they brought in Mark Singer and Jane Badler from the original to have parts in Season 2. While Badler reprised her role as Diana, Singer was a new character, Lars. It wasn't enough and the show was still canceled. The final episode aired March 15th, 2011. It went on for 2 seasons with 23 episodes. V is not available for streaming anywhere that I could find. It is on physical media and video on demand. It's not on YouTube. If you'd like to see the bonus 6th entry, as well as vote on future entries, and get some cool other perks, please consider joining my Patreon. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll see you next time.